Hello, I'm taking on a challenge to beat every playable Nintendo published game. Welcome to the next episode. The next games are Hogan's Alley and versus Hogan's Alley. We've got another light gun game this time around, and similar to Duck Hunt, this one also released in arcades as part of the Versus system. Once again, the Versus system version of this one was launched in the US before the NES was even released in the West, and apparently was pretty successful in the US too. The game is most likely based on training facilities used by the police and FBI, which often use the same name, Hogan's Alley. The FBI says the name originally comes from a 19th century series of comics that took place in an area called Hogan's Alley. These training facilities would use fake buildings and mechanical pop-up bad guys that trainees would fire at. Alright, let's jump into the actual games. I started with the NES version. Like the other light gun games I've played so far, this game has 3 game modes: Hogan's Alley A, Hogan's Alley B, and Trick Shot. I started with Hogan's Alley A. In this mode, 3 panels are lined up on the screen. They will all flip and face forward, and you have to discern which of them are gangsters and shoot them in a quick enough time. If you don't shoot the gangsters fast enough, a miss is added to your miss counter. Additionally, if you shoot anyone that's not a gangster, you'll also get a miss. There are 3 types of gangsters: Gangster A, Gangster B, and Gangster C. There are also 3 other types of people that can appear that aren't gangsters: a lady, a professor, and a police officer. It's generally pretty easy to ignore the lady, since she looks pretty different from all the gangsters, but it's easy to confuse the police officer and the professor as gangsters. The police officer looks a bit like Gangster C, and since all the gangsters are holding weapons, the baton the police officer is holding would occasionally trip me up. The professor looked like Gangster A, and I especially found the similarities between their frowns to be what got me the most, as he was the one I probably shot the most at by mistake. You get quite a few misses in this one. You have a total of 10 misses before you get a game over. While I have played this one before, I couldn't remember if there was a good win condition in this one, so I initially decided just to see how far I could go. Honestly, this was surprisingly tough. Similar to Wild Gunman, we can see how much time we have to react at the top. However, it'll likely take you a little longer in this one to actually fire your shots, since it takes time to determine which panels you actually need to shoot. Because of this, I don't think the times ever get quite as fast as Wild Gunman, but it still requires some pretty quick reaction times. You'd be surprised at how quickly you can burn through all those misses. On my first run through the game, I made it through 15 rounds with only 3 misses. Once you reach this point, the text Sharpshooter appears on screen. I don't really think this does anything, but in a way, I guess it could count as an ending for the game. I still decided to keep going and see how far I could go. I lost my last life at exactly round 30, where I wasn't able to react fast enough to a gangster with a 0.6 second requirement. Seeing that Sharpshooter screen seemed good enough, so I moved on to Hogan's Alley B. In this one, you moved on from a simple one-screen room to an entire scene full of fake buildings and storefronts. Instead of showing 3 panels at once, various panels appear and you have to shoot whatever gangsters you see. After enough gangsters are shot on a single screen, you move to the side and are placed in a new screen for a new round of gangsters. They don't display the time in this mode anymore, and there's a couple different types of panels that appear too. Some will start off turned sideways, then appear, while others will come in facing forward immediately and will turn to the side once they reach their destination. These second type of panels often require attention sooner, since they turn away quickly if you don't react fast enough. This messed me up a few times. I would be waiting at a sideways panel for it to turn forward, but while I stood there waiting, a new gangster would show up and quickly leave. After clearing enough screens, I made a complete loop. The first time I completed this, a good message appeared, and I started the next round. Well, this isn't a sharpshooter message, but maybe this is a good enough goal? I only had 3 misses at this point, so I decided to keep going to see if there's anything else I could find. I lost 4 more lives in this round, but after clearing this round, the sharpshooter message appeared again. Ah, that's more like it. I ended up losing the rest of my lives in the next round, but seeing that sharpshooter message was enough for me to move on to the next mode. This one, the trick shot mode, was completely different. In this one, cans are flying in from the side, and every time you shot at a can, it bounced upwards a bit in the air. Man, these cans are surprisingly durable, as they seem to be able to tank quite a few shots. Anyway, the goal is to get the cans to the platforms on the left, and the more risky the platform, the more points it is worth. The lowest one is worth a whopping 5,000 points, which is over 6 times as good as the platform right above it, so you definitely need to aim for this one to get the best bang for your buck. There's also a little safety platform along the way that's pretty easy to land on, but it only gives you 100 points. After enough cans are cleared, you finish a round. Since I'm focusing on the sharpshooter achievement, and it typically only happens after you clear enough rounds, I could have ignored trying to get a high score, but I still often went for that 5,000 point ledge anyway. After 5 total rounds were cleared, I saw the sharpshooter achievement in this mode too. Nice, I met my goal already. I only lost 4 lives up until this point though, so I kept going. After 10 rounds, I saw something completely new. Instead of just saying sharpshooter, it now said super sharpshooter. This made me realize that it probably existed in the other modes too, so I decided to make this super sharpshooter message my goal instead. In this mode, I lost my last life in round 11 soon after. After this, I returned to Hogan's Alley A to see that super sharpshooter message. If it's just a matter of getting enough points to see the sharpshooter message a second time, I need to beat round 30. Looking back on my first run, I lost my last life on exactly round 30. Dang, I was so close and I didn't even realize it. Anyway, I smoked it this time. I cleared 30 rounds after only losing half of my lives. Like I suspected, this showed you the super sharpshooter message after this point. Nice. I kept going and my run ended on the 41st round. Next up was Hogan's Alley B. This one may be a bit tougher, since I probably need to clear 4 whole rounds and I only cleared 2 the last time I played it. I cut it a little close, but after 8 misses, I cleared round 4 and saw that sweet super sharpshooter message. After this, I panicked and lost my last life in round 5 after shooting a police officer thinking he was a gangster. I was definitely content getting the super sharpshooter achievement in each mode, so with that, Hogan's Alley was complete. On to Versus Hogan's Alley. Similar to Versus Duck Hunt, I am once again not playing this on an original arcade machine with a light gun, so instead I'm using a mouse and an added crosshair on the screen. It doesn't perfectly reflect the original experience, but it's the best I can do. The changes in this one are similar to the changes they made to Versus Duck Hunt. You now alternate between each of the 3 game modes. You go through 5 rounds in the A mode and a full loop in the B mode. For the B mode, they now treat each screen transition as a whole round, so by the time you finish with both modes, you've done 10 total rounds. The trick shot mode now serves as a bonus level where you can't lose any lives, but you have a limited number of shots, so spamming bullets is no longer viable. Speaking of lives, instead of having 10 total misses, you now have lives on the bottom left similar to Versus Duck Hunt. These lives are configurable by the machine owners, and I set them to the highest value, 5. My first run went pretty well. I cleared 10 rounds with 4 lives still remaining, which meant I cleared a whole loop. This alone may be a good enough ending clear condition, but I kept going in case there was something else. I managed to get all the way to round 20, and clearing the bonus game at this point gives you a special break time screen. In this cutscene, the professor suddenly grows legs and starts to waddle around. For some reason, he starts getting shot at and runs off screen to avoid the bullets. What's the implication of this cutscene? Are all the panels actually alive, or was it just this one guy hiding amongst the others? Regardless, this makes for an even better ending, so I'm glad I made it this far. I ended up getting absolutely destroyed in round 21 right after, and I ended my run there. While this felt like a good enough clear condition, I didn't quite get the top of the preset leaderboard, and I only had played for 7 minutes, so I gave it another go. I once again got completely walled out at round 21, but thankfully I still managed to earn just enough points to get the top of the leaderboard. With that, Versus Hogan's Alley was complete. On to the reviews. This one feels like they took the concepts of Wild Gunman and expanded on them a bit more. The addition of adding targets to avoid adds a new level of complexity that makes the game a bit more involved than strictly just reaction times. Similar to both of the light gun games that came before it, the main draw is the novelty of aiming the gun at the screen, and unfortunately, it doesn't take long for that novelty to wear off and become repetitive. I think it's generally an improvement over the ideas found in Wild Gunman, but not enough to bump it up to the next level. I gave both versions of the game a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to see more of these in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss out on the next one. Also leave a like if you enjoyed it, since it will help the channel grow and motivate me to continue this series. I hope I will see you in the next step of my quest to beat every Nintendo game.